You've eaten cow. You've eaten chicken. Maybe you've even eaten alligator or snake at some point. But have you ever eaten a lion? A wolf? A wild bear? Probably not. And here's the weird part. It's not because it's illegal everywhere. It's not even really because it's disgusting. It's because eating an apex predator can genuinely mess up your body in about 5 different ways at once. From parasites that survive being frozen for 5 years, to a single bite of liver that contains enough of one vitamin to kill 50 people. So today we're answering a question almost nobody asks out loud. Why don't humans eat the animals at the very top of the food chain? And once you understand the answer, you'll never look at a food chain diagram the same way again. Let's get into it. First, quick definition, because this matters later. Every ecosystem runs on trophic levels, basically who eats who. Plants sit at the bottom. Herbivores eat plants. Small carnivores eat herbivores. And apex predators, lions, orcas, wolves, polar bears, sit at the very top, eating other predators with almost nothing left to eat them. Now the question is, if humans eat basically everything else on this planet, why do apex predators get skipped? Turns out it's not one reason. It's 5, stacked on top of each other. And the first one is just basic math. Here's the rule that explains almost everything. Only about 10% of the energy at one trophic level makes it to the next. The other 90% just disappears, burned off as heat and movement. So what does this mean in practice? To grow 1 pound of apex predator, you don't just need 1 pound of prey. You need thousands of pounds of stuff stacked underneath it. Plants, then bugs or rodents that eat the plants, then smaller predators that eat those, and finally your top predator eating all of that. This is why chicken is so cheap and lion meat basically doesn't exist commercially. A chicken converts about 2 pounds of feed into 1 pound of meat. A predator like an alligator needs 45% protein in its diet just to survive, and it still grows painfully slowly. You'd need to farm thousands of smaller animals just to feed a handful of predators to eventually eat. It's not profitable. It's not even close. But here's the problem, even if you solve the money issue, you'd run straight into something worse. Apex predators are basically walking pollution filters for their entire ecosystem. It works like this. Tiny organisms absorb trace chemicals from soil and water. Herbivores eat thousands of those organisms. Then predators eat the herbivores. Then bigger predators eat those predators, and every single step up, the chemicals don't get diluted. They get more concentrated. Scientists call this biomagnification. By the time you reach the top of the chain, you're looking at animals loaded with methylmercury, PCBs, and PFAS, the forever chemicals you've probably heard about. And here's the scary part. Methylmercury binds directly into the muscle protein. You can't trim it off like fat. It's just in the meat. One EPA study found measurable mercury in basically every single fish tissue sample tested across the country. Now imagine that same effect, except stacked up an entire extra trophic level in something like a shark or a bear. And cooking doesn't fix this. You can boil it, grill it, smoke it for a week. Heavy metals and industrial chemicals don't care. They're heat stable. They're staying right where they are. So that's chemical contamination. But even if a predator somehow grew up in a totally clean environment, you'd still have a third problem waiting for you. Predators eat other predators, which means they skip the natural filtering that happens when something just eats plants. Parasites and pathogens pass straight up the chain and concentrate in their muscle. The big one here is trichinosis, caused by a parasite that literally lives inside muscle tissue. It's rare in commercial pork these days thanks to modern farming. But it's still common in wild bears, wolves, and cougars. And here's the part that should genuinely worry you. In cold regions, there's a strain called Trichinella nativa that can survive being frozen at -18 degrees Celsius for over 5 years. Your home freezer, which normally kills parasites in other meat. Completely useless against this one. There's also a tapeworm that can grow over 10 meters long inside a human intestine, picked up from predators that eat infected fish. And toxoplasmosis, which can cause serious neurological problems, especially in pregnant women. Cooking meat properly to around 165 degrees Fahrenheit does kill these parasites. So that risk is manageable if you're careful. But even if you clear the poison hurdle and the parasite hurdle, you're still left with one final problem. And it might be the most unglamorous one of all. predator meat, generally speaking, is just not fun to eat. Wild predators spend their whole lives hunting, chasing, and fighting. That builds dense, tough, heavily fibered muscle wrapped in thick connective tissue. Basically the opposite of the soft, marbled meat you get from a cow that just stands around eating grass all day. And flavor is directly tied to diet. Herbivores eating grass produce those mild, beefy flavors we like. Predators eating other animals produce much stronger, funkier compounds. Bears that gorge on salmon, for example, end up with meat that tastes oily and fishy. And sharks retain so much urea in their tissue that after death, it breaks down into ammonia, giving raw shark meat a smell like actual urine, unless it's specifically treated with acid to neutralize it. So even setting aside the science, most predator meat just needs serious culinary work to become edible at all. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, so it's expensive, toxic, diseased, and doesn't taste good. Isn't that basically the whole story? Not quite. There's a legal layer sitting on top of all of this too, and it exists for a completely different reason. Apex predators naturally exist in tiny numbers compared to herbivores. There's only ever a few lions for every 1,000 zebras, ecologically speaking. That makes them incredibly easy to wipe out. So laws like CITES internationally and the Endangered Species Act and Marine Mammal Protection Act in the U.S. place strict, sometimes total bans on hunting, trading, or selling predator meat. In the U.S., commercially selling wild-caught game meat of any kind is illegal in all 50 states, period. This is exactly why one Chicago butcher shop made national news back in 2003. They were secretly selling illegally sourced tiger and leopard meat, labeled as African lion meat. To get around the law, the owner ended up in federal prison. And this legal protection isn't just bureaucracy for its own sake. It's protecting something bigger. Because when you remove apex predators from an ecosystem, things don't just get quieter. They can collapse. But here's the problem: laws are recent. Humans have been avoiding predator meat for a lot longer than any modern legislation has existed. And that's because long before governments got involved, religion already drew this exact same line. So what does this mean? It means multiple religions, developed independently, thousands of miles apart, all arrived at the same rule: don't eat the predator. In Jewish dietary law, kashrut, a land animal is only kosher if it chews cud and has split hooves, which automatically rules out every carnivore on earth, since predators simply don't chew cud. The Torah goes even further and names specific forbidden birds, and almost all of them are birds of prey and scavengers: eagles, hawks, owls, vultures. Islamic dietary law follows a strikingly similar pattern. Traditional teachings prohibit eating any animal that hunts using fangs or talons, which is, essentially, a direct description of a predator. And in Hindu tradition, meat from predatory animals is often considered especially tamasic, spiritually heavy and undesirable. Even in communities that otherwise eat meat, even outside organized religion, you see the same instinct. Many indigenous cultures treat animals like the bear or the wolf as spirit guardians, sacred, not dinner. So this isn't a coincidence. Long before anyone understood biomagnification or feed conversion ratios, human cultures across the world were already sensing, spiritually, that something about eating the animal at the very top of the food chain crosses a line. The clearest example, Yellowstone. Wolves were wiped out for 70 years. Without them, elk overgrazed the land, riverbanks eroded, and whole plant and bird populations declined. When wolves were reintroduced in the 1990s, elk behavior changed, vegetation recovered, and the whole ecosystem started stabilizing again. Scientists still debate exactly how big that effect really was. Some of the early claims were overstated. But the core idea holds up. Apex predators aren't just apex because they're strong. They're structurally holding the whole system together from the top down. So what does all of this add up to? So here's the real answer in one line: humans don't eat apex predators not because of one rule, but because nature and culture stacked 6 separate walls in front of it. Energy math that makes it economically pointless. Toxic chemical buildup. Dangerous parasites. Unpleasant meat. Legal protection to stop us from wiping them out. And religious traditions across the world that drew this exact same line long before any of the science existed. And honestly, that's kind of the point. Apex predators were never meant to be food. They were meant to be the thing that keeps everything else in balance.